Hello everybody, this is Sharon, and I wanted to share another Christmas decor piece that I created using some board from Michael's. It's the wooden board that kind of looks, it reminds me like of a frame, and it just comes plain, doesn't have any paint or anything on it, so you can paint it or do whatever you want to do with it. This is the paint that I used. It's called Habanero, and it's a pretty red Christmas color, and it's just really a pretty color. So I just kind of went around the edges of the frame and just put that on. You don't really need any paint on the inside of the frame, so I just kind of went around the edges and put that, you know, around all four edges. So I just used just a regular sponge brush to do that. And just for a little tip, when you do paint like that, if you'll put the paint on the center piece of the wood there instead of putting it on the scroll on the outside, it'll keep the paint from getting down in those little grooves, because after I got through painting, I actually had to go back in and take like a little sharp instrument and pick that paint back out of there. So if you'll just put it on the inside of the wood there, and that won't happen. So I'm just going to continue to go around all four corners there and just spread the paint out evenly around the corners. And I do dry it really good between each coat, because I do add several layers of color here. I think I do red, black, and green. So I do dry it really well between each coat. And this color right here is licorice, and I think I just purchased that at Walmart. So I'm just going to kind of go around the edges, do basically the same thing as I did with the red paint, just kind of dabbing it around, and just to give it a little bit of contrast against that red paint, and to darken up the red paint. It's a little bright for me. I wanted something a little bit darker than that. And you can also use a tray like the one I'm using here to put your ink in. You don't really have to put it right on the project. Also, I'm using just a dry paper towel to wipe some of that paint off, and so it won't be so dark, but I did want it to have some contrast and let the paint kind of get down into the wood on there. So just kind of continue to go around and do that. And I also did dry it between each coat, and so I'm just going back and putting a little bit more red. The black was just a little bit too much. I did have a little bit of a problem getting it the color I wanted to, but I finally did achieve it in the end. I thought it turned out really pretty. So like I said before, I'm just adding a little bit more red to it. And like I said, I do dry it between each coat. So here I'm just drying it a little bit, just making sure that it's dry before I add my next color. So now I'm going to use some gesso just to just kind of dab it around like I did before, and just around the edges to give it a little bit more texture. I kind of pat this, and it does give it a little bit of more of a texture. You can kind of see it when you hold it up close. You can see it more, so it just don't look so flat. And of course it does lighten it a good bit. So I didn't really want it to be so dark, because the paper collection I'm using is it has green, red, and white in it. And then of course some of the things like the little Magnolia Tilda girl, she has some black on her, so I did want to keep the black in it as well. So right here I'm just putting some more red on it, and I just kind of keep going back and forth doing this until I can get it exactly like I want it. And so I'm going to actually add more gesso to it and just kind of lighten that up again. So this was just a process of getting it like I wanted it. You really don't have to do all of this, unless you're really picky like me, and it just had to be perfect for what I was wanting to use it for. So I'm just going to continue to do like I have been doing, just patting it and trying to get more texture with that. And so as I did dab the gesso on, it was wet, and before I dried it this time, I did take some diamond glass and just kind of sprinkle that over it. I didn't really want the diamond glass to stick to everything, so just where I dab the gesso is where the diamond glass actually sticks. So it's just kind of in various places, it's not all over, and so I do all four corners using the diamond glass. Okay, so this is kind of how it looks after I get through doing all the four corners with the diamond glass. It's really pretty and sparkly. It has a lot of texture from adding the gesso and just kind of patting it on there. So it's really pretty colors there. So next I wanted to add a little bit of green, and the green color that I used is called Metallic Christmas Green, and it has a lot of metallic and it's really a pretty green. And so I just wanted to add just a little touch of that in a few places, nothing major, but just to bring out that green a little bit. So I'm just going to dab around the edges on that as well. And it's kind of going over that glass glitter, so it also makes the glass glitter look actually green in some places instead of clear. So that's really a pretty effect as well. Okay, so right here I have gotten some embellishments out. I'll use some metal embellishments. I got some snowflakes that I just cut in half that I purchased, I think, at Michael's and different places like that. And my little Magnolia Tilda girl, I have a bow and a couple of buttons that I cut the back off. And so right here I'm just, putting some glue, some E6000 on my metal piece, and then I just use my hot glue gun to make that go ahead and adhere quickly. If you don't use, in my opinion, if you don't use something like E6000 with your metal pieces, they will pop off in time. They won't stay adhered. So I did use that first, and then I just used my hot glue gun to put that over it so it would be immediately glued on there instead of me having to hold it. So I do 4 pieces like that, and the top, both sides, and the bottom. And the paper collection I used is Safe Freeze. I purchased that at Michael's. It's probably been 2 or 3 weeks ago, so that's the paper collection that I used. And I did rough up all my papers with the Tim Holtz Distress edger. Just went around and distressed my edges really good with that tool. And then I adhered them down with this Fabri-Tac. I think I purchased that at Walmart, and that is my go-to glue for adding, for gluing papers together. It won't warp your paper. It's a little expensive, but it doesn't warp your paper and or make it wrinkle or anything like that. So you can use your coupon at Michael's for that, and you can use that to adhere your papers if you don't want them to wrinkle. So I'll go ahead and adhere all my papers together, and like I said before, I do use the Tim Holtz Distresser around the edges just to give it that distressed look. And here I'm just going to add my embellishments. So if you guys would like to just continue to watch, it's kind of self-explanatory as to what I do here. If you have any questions about anything, just feel free to ask. I don't mind, helping you guys any way that I can. And so I hope you guys enjoy the video, and I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye bye.